Yo, what's up guys, it's Rio here. It's currently 8:30 in the morning and I'm about to grab my morning coffee. So I drink coffee in the morning because I fucking love it. But apart from that, I love the energy it gives me, the focus, the mental clarity, and it also keeps my appetite suppressed. So coffee is actually one of the best appetite suppressants, which helps you sustain a calorie deficit on a consistent basis, which makes it easy for you to drop body fat. So intermittent fasting can be a valuable tool for calorie restriction, but there's this idea that fasting is like this magical thing, right? And that's absolutely not the case. The only case in which intermittent fasting can be useful is if it helps you eat in a calorie deficit every single day. That's it. It's literally just a calorie restriction tool. Some people, however, really struggle with intermittent fasting. So what happens is that they can get through like a fast in the morning, but then what happens is that once they start eating, it opens this floodgate, and then they have to overeat. Like they consume so many fucking calories and they go on this binge, right? Because they basically starve themselves throughout the morning. So if you're someone who, you know, can benefit from intermittent fasting in terms of it helps you eat fewer calories each day, then by all means you can go for it. I don't see any issue with that. But if you're someone who, you know, you try and fast through the morning and then you start eating and it opens this floodgate for you, then I would absolutely stay away from fasting. And the other thing you'd have to really ask yourself is like, what's your goal, right? I've had like young guys come up to me and they're like, Rio, like I really want to put on weight. I'm like skinny, I'm lacking muscle mass. I need to gain weight. You know, I'm doing intermittent fasting. And I'm like, yo, hold the fuck up. Hold the fuck up, bro. You're struggling to gain fucking weight. You're struggling to eat enough calories each day, and you're doing intermittent fasting, which means you're basically not eating for half the day. Do you see the fucking disconnect there, right? So if you're someone who needs to put on weight and you struggle, you have a low appetite, you struggle to gain weight and gain muscle, stay the fuck away from intermittent fasting, obviously, right? If you're someone who really struggles to dial in leanness and you struggle to eat fewer calories each day, then, you know, that's when you want to maybe look at something like intermittent fasting as a valuable tool. But at the end of the day, it's nothing magical. It's simply a way for you to restrict your calories and help you hit the calorie deficit each day, which is what actually matters when it comes to fat loss. The amount of meals you eat really doesn't matter as long as you're in that deficit by the end of the day. So right now it's 10:30 and I'm about to have my first meal. So for my first meal, I like to keep it very light. I like to stay away from like very heavy carbohydrates. I like to stay very protein and fat focused. Although I do a little bit of fruit, which I guess, you know, that obviously carbohydrates, but I like to keep the first meal light. I don't like to eat too heavy throughout the day. I like to save most of my calories for later in the day because throughout the day, I like to stay light. I like to stay focused so that I can conquer and get shit done, and I don't want to feel lethargic and weighed down. So what I'm gonna have is 4 eggs and a little bit of fruit. So the fitness industry as a whole has been massively distorted from the truth, right? When you start to hear about all these different fad diets and these crazy rules and all this fucking wild shit, you know that the industry has gone wild and people have gone mad, right? People have vastly overcomplicated dieting and nutrition. It's very, very, very simple. You just want to eat a well-balanced diet that's very rich in whole foods that are nutritious. You want to focus on getting enough protein. You want to get your fruits and vegetables in, right, to hit your micronutrients. And most importantly, you just want to hit the calorie intake that's required for you to hit to achieve your goals, right? So if you want to lean down, that means eating in a calorie deficit each day. If you want to gain muscle, that means eating in a small calorie surplus. Dieting is very fucking simple. Don't listen to all these crazy, you know, these crazy fad diets, this crazy shit that's like so common in the fitness industry now. It's just about, you know, it's about staying consistent with a few core principles. Hit your calories, hit your protein, get enough whole foods, and, you know, eat a balanced diet. Don't cut out any of the macronutrients. Get a balance of protein, fats, and carbs. So how I stay full in a calorie deficit when I'm dieting is I like to focus on mostly whole foods. So whole foods are single ingredient foods that are very dense in micronutrients. Things like, you know, strawberries, apples, eggs, meats, different things like that. That's what you want like 80% of your diet to consist of, because whole foods tend to keep you much more full because they're very dense in nutrition. And so a big part of staying full when you're dieting is consuming a balanced diet that contains all of the macronutrients. So you don't want to cut out any of the macronutrients because that wreaks havoc on your body, throws off your hormones, right? So you want to make sure you're getting a balance of fats, carbs, and obviously getting enough protein. When I'm dieting, I like to keep my protein slightly higher. So optimal protein intake for muscle growth is about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. You don't need anything more than that when it comes to building and repairing muscle tissue. However, for the satiating effects of protein, I like to keep it at around 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. So that helps me stay more full in a calorie deficit. So walking is incredible for fat loss because it helps you to induce a further calorie deficit, which speeds up the fat loss process, but without the downsides and the negative effects of doing intense cardio. So what I found when I used to do runs and when I used to do traditional forms of cardio that are thought to be good for fat loss, what happens is that, yeah, I'd go on the run, I'd do the cardio, I'd burn a little bit of calories, but what would happen is that I would go home and I would just be absolutely starving because that cardio worked up an appetite. And that's the last thing you want when it comes to fat loss. The goal of fat loss is actually, to reduce your appetite. If your appetite stays low, then that makes eating in a calorie deficit easier, which is the primary objective that you have when it comes to fat loss. It's sustaining that calorie deficit every single day. So walking is going to put you in a deeper calorie deficit, but without working up an appetite that might cause you to eat those calories back, like is common with lots of other forms of intense cardio. So right now it's 3 o'clock. I'm gonna have my second meal. My second meal usually looks pretty identical to my first meal. It's just another light meal that keeps me full until my dinner later on. Usually dinner around like 6 o'clock. So this meal like kind of plugs the gap between the first meal and my dinner meal. And it's very similar. So I'm gonna have some tuna, some tomatoes, and that's pretty much it. Biggest mistake people make with dieting is following unsustainable diet plans. So following fad diets and things that they just can't sustain for life, right? So I'm a big believer in that. If you can't do it for life, don't do it for a day. So you have to absolutely love your diet plan. You have to love each and every day of it. You cannot be following a diet plan that you can see yourself sticking to for a month or 2 months. You have to fucking enjoy it because the real results come in the long term, right? It's that compounding and consistency over time that leads up to incredible results. And if you're not following a diet plan that works for you and works for your lifestyle and something that you can enjoy, you're never going to succeed. Maybe you'll get short-term results, but you'll quickly bounce back to your old habits. And whatever you did to get in great shape is what you must continue doing for as long as you want to stay in great shape. People think that they can just, follow these crazy diet plans, get in really good shape, and then go back to their old eating habits and somehow maintain the progress that they made, but it doesn't work like that, right? So whatever you do to get in great shape diet-wise and fitness-wise in general, but especially with diet, is what you'll need to continue doing. So make sure that it's something that you can see yourself sticking to for life. So you want to get a balance of all the macronutrients if you want peak health and well-being. So these people telling you need to cut out carbs or cut out fats, it's complete fucking bullshit, right? Carbs, fats, and protein all play vital roles in your bodily processes, and you need a balance of all of them. Don't listen to anyone telling you to cut out any macronutrients. They're all really, really important. If you cut out carbs, you cut out fats, your hormones will go to shit. So you want to make sure you're getting a balance of all of them. However, don't be meticulous about trying to hit some perfect macronutrient ratio split, like 40% carb, 20% proteins, like complete bullshit. Like it's just adding extra layers of complexity for very little extra benefit. So just focus on getting a well-balanced diet, hitting all the macronutrients, and you'll be fine. So right now we're going to go pick up some burritos. So we're going to do some takeout for dinner today. So here and there I like to do takeout instead of cooking. Cooking makes it a little bit easier for you to have more control over hitting your nutrition requirements, getting the right calorie intake. But here and there, I like to eat out and avoid having to cook and do all that shit. So I'm a big believer in fitting in the foods that you love, right? So burritos are like my favorite food. So obviously I'm not going to just cut that out, right? I'll just fit them into my diet. And that's what you want to do as well, right? Like if you love a certain food, or you love a certain meal, like you can fit that into your diet. I don't believe in this idea of like doing cheat days, right? Where, you eat perfect Monday to Saturday and then Sunday you just pig out and eat whatever the fuck you want. I think that's a very unhealthy relationship to have with food. If you want to fit in a certain meal or a certain food, just fit it into your diet, man. Just follow, like I'm very flexible with that. You want to think of it as like a, if it fits your calories or if it fits your macros kind of thing, where, you're eating the foods you like. Obviously you want to, you still have to abide by the principles of nutrition, right? You want to hit the calories that are required for your goals. You want to get enough protein. You want to get a diet that has mostly whole foods. But there's literally nothing wrong with, going out to grab food, right? And eating out. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Just fit it into your diet and you'll be fine. So my suggestions for fitting in takeaway or fitting in, meals at family gatherings or events is to, first of all, just look at the nutrition information. So a lot of food places nowadays will have the nutrition facts for you to just, have access to. So that takes away all the guesswork. So that's an obvious way to do it. But you will run into situations where, you go to a small home-owned, fucking authentic restaurant, right? And they're not gonna have the nutrition facts. In that case, you'll have to eyeball it, right? And so what helps with eyeballing is having prior experience with tracking calories, right? So if you've tracked your calories for a good period of time, you'll develop the ability to eyeball your food because you've seen so many different foods, you've tracked for a long period of time. Like I've tracked for 7 years, right? So if I look at a couple burritos, I can make a pretty good estimate of how many calories are gonna be in them. The other thing to consider is like, even if you're pulling out the scale and weighing every single piece of food that goes in your mouth, it's still gonna be inaccurate. Like it's pretty much impossible to be dead on accurate when it comes to tracking calories. So eyeballing your food here and there, it's really not that big a deal. You can get, pretty close. Like you just have to focus on being in the ballpark. It doesn't have to be perfect. And again, even if you're weighing everything, you're cooking everything, it's not gonna be perfect. You just wanna hope to be in a certain ballpark. And that's really all you have to worry about. So that concludes today's day of eating. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want a free training that's gonna help you pack on muscle, lose fat, and build the body of your dreams without living in the gym and sacrificing your life, click the link in my description to get access to this free training and I'll send it over to you. Peace.